All right. The hour of 6:30 having arrived, I'd like to call to order the Plan Commission meeting for City of Columbus for October 10th, 2024. Mike, will you call the roll, please?
Traxler, Bright, Albright,
Present.
Monday,
Present.
Myers,
Present.
Hajewski,
Present.
Finkler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. This meeting was appropriately posted and noticed according to state law.
Correct.
All right, you have an agenda in your packets. Please review, and I'll entertain a motion to approve as written or amend.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed? We have our agenda. Minutes are in your packet from last month. Please take a minute to review. I'll entertain a motion to approve as written or amend.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, moving on to new business. We have a certified survey map in our packets. Looks pretty straightforward. Mike, do you want to introduce, and are you from Grothman?
I'm from Prairie Ridge. I'm representing.
Prairie Ridge, okay. So, Mike, do you want to introduce it, and then if you have anything you want to add, you can step to the mic and let us know.
This is a certified survey map for land adjacent to Prairie Ridge Hospital. It is 19.14 acres, currently zoned rural development. It's looking like this, at this time, a rezoning isn't going to be pursued, but that may in fact happen at a later date. It meets all of our subdivision regulations. The city engineer had included a review letter of the CSM. There's a couple things to address, so we recommend approval with the conditions that the items in the review letter be addressed. And I believe actually an updated survey that came in very recently may have already addressed those issues. But you should still include those, the conditions of the letter in your recommendation.
Is that adequately descriptive? All right. Okay. Commissioners, any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question. So this is, looking at the application, this is for a parking lot update? The face.
Is there a red light on it? Or a red button? No, face, but face. Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah, this is for parking lot expansion, new retention pond, and just to expand the driveway down towards 151 to put turning lanes and bypass lanes in, because I don't know if you're familiar with turning in and out of the hospital entrance. It's pretty crowded, so we would like to propose to purchase this 19.14 acres. And then there will be future expansion on there as well as a parking lot and turning lanes. This is just a CSM to section off part of the land that from the current landowner. After this is approved and we get the purchase approved, then we would do a CSM to put some more right-of-ways, because we are removing a drainage ditch, working with the city to move some power lines and some more water lines that'll go up into Enerpac to create that loop. So there will be more easements and stuff that'll have to go on the next CSM, but this one is just to get it separated off from the current landowner.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So this is really just a preparatory step for more planning later.
Yes.
The zoning remains the same, which is what, RD or?
Rural development.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for bringing this up, just, sorry, I'm pointing at the screen behind you, not at you. Yeah, there wasn't a ton of context in our packet, so if you wouldn't mind zooming in, Mike, and kind of,
So it's this area right in here.
Yep, it comes, kind of follows this ditch straight up. We already.
Oh,
own this.
yeah,
So it
okay, I
follows
see
this
that.
waterway straight up to the road.
I see that.
So it's gonna be more than a parking lot.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is all for future expansion.
Okay.
We feel that if, when the hospital ever ages out, we need to build a new hospital, instead of trying to relocate the whole facility, we could do something in this area and then kind of flop over. I mean, hopefully that's, well, beyond my time at the hospital, but you never know.
So it's that whole parcel up to that
To the
It
road.
goes to this, no, it just goes to this drainage right
Yeah,
drainage?
yeah.
Goes over to, I think this is the line
Yeah,
here.
this
It's hard to
is-
see.
Yeah, this is the property that we purchased.
There we go.
3-4 years ago, and then we're just gonna purchase 19.14 more acres.
It's hard to see that line there, but,
There's a line?
Yeah, there's a line right
right.
here.
It's really hard to see.
Okay, so this
Harder up
parcel's
there.
not immediately adjacent to the hospital, it's, oh, I see, this, okay. So this triangle, where the north arrow is, that's farm field, that's not developed by the hospital yet.
Right, but owned already by the hospital.
Right,
Correct.
right,
Right.
right.
Okay, so there's
okay.
field space, then you're buying lot.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
Correct.
makes sense.
Yeah, this line right here, this is owned by the hospital. This section here is what we're proposing to purchase now.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that makes a lot more sense. We did the certified math survey a couple years ago for this.
Correct. I do remember that now.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I was confused too, because I'm like, I thought they owned this property already, so I was like, okay, so, it's good.
Okay. That's
Approval?
good. So,
With the letter, with the, yeah.
yeah, so a motion might look like recommend approval, or recommend to council that they approve the certified survey map with the condition that the review comments in the staff report and engineer's report are incorporated. That wasn't a motion, that was just an example of a motion.
I would make a motion that we approve the CSM with the conditions that the items in the review letter be addressed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Recommend to council with conditions as noted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
All
I'll
right.
reach out a little bit later next week, maybe. Reach out to you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, the final item on the agenda. Mike, would you introduce this?
Yeah.
There's a proposal for development services. As you introduce this, will you let us know kind of what staff is seeking from the plan commission here?
Yeah. Let's see here, property map, bring this up first. This is the, you can see up here on the map, one of your attachments, this is city-owned property. We call it the Tower Drive property, it's about 8 acres. I think about 6 of it is developable, because there's floodplain down here, floodplain. I think this was bought maybe 5 years or so ago, 5-6 years ago, something like that. It doesn't, I'm told that the property probably isn't going to be considered for any other uses, so it's an opportunity for us to have this property developed. So prior to getting into marketing the project. We're looking for recommendation to the city council by the plan commission to hire Vanderwall to do a property assessment where we can utilize some of that information for Matt and I to do some public outreach in the neighborhood on some visioning and what we would like to see this property developed as far as density, style of housing, those types of things. It's currently zoned multifamily, but we want to kind of do some front-end public input and analysis before we put a request for proposals out there. We hope this background information will help pull together where we'll have more apples to apples comparison from developers when we get to that point. So this is just to assist us staff-wise and hours-wise to do some background. The proposal of services is in your packet. Let's see, I think it's this one. So site evaluation, site survey of environmental conditions, base mapping, review existing potential development in the vicinity and how that might impact and what goes on the site, review area development and demographic trends, prepare a concept graphic. You know, again, Matt and I will, separate from the consultant, do some public input sessions so that we can kind of get an idea of kind of a little bit more honed in vision of what we would like to see as a community. And then there's, the consultant would meet with staff up to five times to discuss the project.
Is that property behind, what is that,
And that's the assisted living.
assisted living?
Nursing.
Is that,
It's the cornfield.
yeah, is that property potentially available?
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Available for, we already own it.
No, he's talking about this square right here, that you can't see me circle with my finger.
I'm gonna zoom in a little bit.
Oh, you mean that little?
Yep.
Yeah,
South
right
side
there.
of
If the property were a big foot, it's the property sitting on the toes.
I guess we do, did I?
Oh,
I
I would
think
see
I-
the ankle.
That's where the VP station is, right?
No,
No,
down
the
on the
is
curve.
down
I
and
I didn't extend it far enough when I drew this blue square. It's this lot here.
What about above it?
No, above it, behind the whole
The-
food zone.
I think you're talking about the backyard of the,
Here?
There.
Yep. Is that,
Let me go switch back to this other map.
Is that the church?
This is the nursing home.
They
nursing
own it,
home, but
yeah.
Right.
Potentially, is that land available to purchase from them? So that would be, I mean, otherwise you're kind of landlocking that.
Well, that
We
might
haven't pursued that.
Yeah.
We haven't pursued that.
No, it's down.
I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. It's
Okay,
Yeah,
Tower
it's in town.
next to Western,
Warner and
Okay.
Yeah, you can see the water tower.
Western here.
It's the
water
weird
tower's
four-way
on the map
stop.
right here.
Zion
Somebody
Lutheran
screwed up.
Church is right here.
Oh my gosh, so bad.
So the bottom, the role of this is, again, we want to put some upfront public input and visioning into this project before we move forward with that.
As I read this proposal, it seems like the outcome would be more of a study as opposed to a plat layout. In other words, the study would determine what land uses are marketable at this time, what land uses are not. Maybe present some loose concept plans, but ultimately to write a request for proposals for somebody to take,
Right.
a final vision on it.
Task number
right?
3, I see it as development concepts, as some kind of visual, help people, for instance, a twin home development.
Right.
Or a mixed-use twin home multifamily development, something that, or something that shows some conceptual layouts that kind of gives a sense of where the access points are, where the pedestrian routes might be, just some of those higher level things. That isn't necessarily exactly, just to give people an idea of what it could be, and get that feedback before we finalize the RFP and write that out.
And you mentioned apples to apples comparison. I know I'll just go ahead and say it, on the Digi property, there were vastly different proposals for that parcel. Is this an effort to not have people bid on one very specific concept, but to maybe
Yeah.
narrow the
And
narrow the field
we
a
did
little bit
request,
instead?
I believe we did request a housing development on that, but nonetheless, the idea is to put more effort to the front end and have a more focused, but not too focused, request for qualifications.
Right.
So you want to keep your options open.
Yeah.
Provide enough of a vision, but be flexible enough that we,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So like density is gonna be important, number of units per acre, probably some concept of layout might be important. Is it all cul-de-sacs, is, you know, whatever, and then in height of buildings,
Right.
maybe architecture too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, typical stages of a land development plan are concept plan, well, first of all, comprehensive plan is sort of the very, very basis. And then you have concept plan, moving to preliminary plat, moving to final plat. This is in that early stage, right?
More of the conceptual area.
Yeah, yep. Maybe it's 30% complete, something on
Yes.
that order.
Yes.
So do we have anybody interested in that property?
We have not marketed this property.
We have in the past.
That's right. That's right.
We've done an RFP in the past, and it was, I think homes was one option, low-income housing was another one, and actually, I kind of wanted to speak to that. So so I'm trying to, okay, couple questions. Where's the money coming from? And second, we know we need more residential property so we can raise our tax base. Do we really need, and I'm not implying the answer to this, but do we really need this service to know what we already need on that property?
I think, well, first of all, the money, this would be a TIF eligible expense. What we don't know is what our community and what the neighborhood would like to see from a density standpoint, again, I wasn't here last year.
Yep.
So I don't know what was done up front and I haven't seen those proposals.
They were bad.
But I think what we're trying to do here is, one, develop a vision for with the public input for what the public wants, and then also put together a cohesive, is some of this, do we already know? It puts it into a nicer package graphically, some of the stuff to include in the request for qualifications, or for
Proposal?
for the proposal.
So, couple things. You mentioned what the neighborhood and area would like, but you also said that's not part of this scope of services. That comes after this scope of services.
It would be part of the process, but Matt and
Right.
I would handle that rather than the consultant.
I'm just wondering, I'm trying to picture, maybe somebody else understands this better than me, but I'm trying to understand what value this scope of services would bring that we couldn't already identify internal with knowing we want residential. The purpose of a request for proposal process is to have people bring visions to us and propose options to us. And we're essentially paying somebody to do that upfront and then going through a process to tell people what we want. Well, they're gonna respond to the proposal, then it's more a request for bid. Like, and I'm using state government terms, so, but a request for bid is you say exactly what you want and whoever can do it the cheapest gets it. So this kind of to me seems like it's taking away the purpose of a request for proposal where you want different options from different people. And I'll stop there because I want to hear what others have to
I mean,
say.
to that point, I mean, can we just move forward with giving you guys approval to go out and gain public interest
Right.
or public input? I think the way you have it here is not shown in the process as public input session.
That's.
I mean, is that,
Staff time.
I mean, it's kind of what, I agree with you. I think we've done a lot of those analysis. I think we know that they don't want a fire department there. They don't want a big apartment building there. But could you not do that public input session without spending any money?
I think we would need to spend some kind of money to put together the appropriate graphics. I guess we could try to do it all digitally and do it on screens and things like that.
You would just gather requirements, and then you'd put those requirements in the RFP, and the developers would develop the graphics to meet your requirements.
I think the idea here is, well, I guess I'm hearing you from the past, we know what they want. I guess I would have to review those, because personally, I don't know what, specifically what those were. The idea here is a little bit more what Uriah says, is to kind of do a 30% conceptual idea to help guide what we want, to get us partly there to what a developer might do from a density standpoint and a form, design layout kind of thing.
So when we say base map, that might be preparing the AutoCAD that has all the easements, the setbacks, where we want to put driveways, that kind of thing, is that?
It could be wetlands, floodplains.
I was wondering about
Yeah,
that because I
that's
know-
probably way more advanced than the vision is.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
it
part of
could, you know,
that's what
I
I'm
could
about.
see like a three-dimensional graphic of house designs, architecture, something that communicates density to kind of give people a sense of what a multifamily or single-family home, how that would fit on the lot, some conceptual ideas.
And I was wondering about like, I know in other development, I've heard of wetlands being where you didn't expect them. So I was wondering are we sure that everything's set to go, that if there's a wetland delineation that is not expired, and, you know, maybe that would be something that would make it more attractive to a developer, is that this part of the DNR hurdle's been cleared.
It has here, review site survey, environmental records. I don't think it says identify, do a wetland inspection.
Yeah, it sort of references available information. There is a lot of information that's available there. The
Right.
floodplain boundary is recorded and doesn't, you know, that's fairly fixed.
Yeah, I know, I mean, like, I know that.
There's wetland information available. There is I guess this is maybe just for notes, but there's a delineation service for fee that the DNR will do. That'll come and kind of confirm that, which does really help, especially at this level of development planning, really helps solidify, the certainty that goes into.
Right.
that
No,
goes
and I was
into
just
this.
thinking, like,
Yeah.
I know that 12,000 sounds like a lot, but at the same time, if you're hiring an engineer to do an ALTA survey and you're hiring someone to do a wetland delineation, those two items alone would probably eat that entire budget.
Right, yeah.
But is that our responsibility or the developer? Like, I'm really struggling with this.
You know, so what it does is as an owner, we're trying to move towards a quality development that has community support, and sometimes you do things up front, and that has value to the future owner of the property. And it's also a way, this is there's a cost one way or another, whether it's staff time or consultant time, to kind of go through this process and get us to where we need to be. The idea here is the idea of concept plans and what we're expecting to kind of happen on these property and dovetail that into public input meetings.
I like the idea of the public input. Is it more of a chicken and the egg? What do you do first? You get the public interest and then you hire this consultant to
Yes.
say, this is kind of what the public is looking for? And then get what you want out of that initial review?
Typically, you would do a, like, at least like in my experience, in my role in developing RFPs, is I would gather requirements, I would review the requirements, and then I would develop the RFP, and then the proposals would come back that have to meet my requirements. And I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, we could have a brainstorming session with the community with Post-it notes. I mean, I facilitate, I'm not volunteering. Maybe I am, I don't know yet. But like, you know, there's so many ways of facilitating conversation around requirements that wouldn't cost almost $13,000.
So I actually have something to say about this too. So, I agree with what Molly said, because we have a tendency of spending money on consultants and then we don't end up doing anything with it. So, I mean, we've spent tens of thousands of dollars on this kind of stuff and then it sits there, and then 5 years goes by and then it's no longer relevant because something's changed. And then to Mike's point, we know that Mike is correct. People do not want anything that's going to be noisy back there, so obviously no fire station. And I don't think the community back there would be interested in having a large multifamily duplex or multifamily apartment building. So I think that kind of narrows our scope down to like housing and or maybe townhomes housing, or what's the term where you have like, you can have some kind of retail in the bottom, mixed use, like mixed use or whatever, and that type of thing. So, while I agree that we should do something with the property, that maybe doing the consulting part of it is maybe putting the cart before the horse.
I agree. I think I'm sorry. Were you done?
No, I do think, you know, maybe we need to go to the community and have an open meeting and say, you know, this is what we're looking at, do we have any input? Because then we can actually give that information to the consultant too. So that they know, you know, what the guidelines would be.
I think she made a good point, putting the cart before the horse. You got to have somebody interested in the property first. And we don't have anybody interested in the property that's willing to throw some money at it. So I think we're overstepping right now. I mean, there's some retail businesses that would love to get into our community. I hope they would. But we don't have a bid. We don't have anybody that's knocking down our doors to buy property here. So to spend any money on the government side, why would we do that till we have somebody even interested?
I mean, we know people are interested in this. We've had developers bid on it. We have developers that are local to this city that have bid on other areas. Like, I'm not concerned about getting anybody to bid on it. I'm just, to Shelley's point, like, we're down to a couple things. Townhomes, regular, larger size housing, or the regular, more affordable housing. So we have Redbud Trail that's right there that has townhome type things, and like the smaller, which you would think would be affordable housing, but now they're like $300,000. So I don't know how that's affordable housing, but anyway.
They're actually more than that now.
Yeah, now they're more than that now, yeah, but like, and then you have right next door over in Highland Ridge, you have like the bigger houses. So to me, we know like what we want in that area, and we lay out those requirements. We don't want big, large apartment complexes, no fire department, potentially mixed use if we want. I mean, it's a busy intersection, like mixed use might be attractive. But like, and even like the nursing home, the people that work there in the school, like maybe want lunch or, you know, I don't know, whatever, and like a thing there, but like, we know what we don't want.
So if I'm hearing all you guys correctly, and like, the process doesn't necessarily have to be linear, right?
Right.
So the cart before the horse, I get that, and the chicken and egg problem, I get that. But if we have a very focused idea, like a pretty segregated list of what we want and what we don't want, and I think, Mike, the public outreach probably can and should happen first, just to sort of maybe corral the horses and verify that what we're talking about here is, yes, what the neighborhood wants. But by the same token, I think they're two separate things. What the neighborhood wants and what the neighborhood envisions. And then there are some things in here that I would find real value in, particularly a couple of things in task 2, where if there's, like if the community has this idea of like maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 4 different potential uses, and then you have a consultant say, all right, we've studied the area and the market, and they all seem feasible, great, go forward with it, or they bring to light, 1 or 2 that really don't seem feasible from a market standpoint, then that's information that can be put into an RFP, right? We can use that information to say, all right, here's something that's maybe more preferable than not, right? You have that, your two purposes start to come together there. Like the site evaluation, I'm, like less excited about. I mean, that's information that you need to know, but I don't want to necessarily create work for staff, but I think a lot of those things don't necessarily have to be done by a consultant. There's things that I think a consultant would be very valuable for. I look at this and I see access challenges. It's a funky shaped parcel that's not going to be compatible with any old layouts. I think some things need to get thought about there, right? Some land uses might not be compatible with the available parcel sizes or available sub-parcel sizes here. So
then maybe we have a problem with the scope of the consulting.
I think maybe that's what it is. Is there some way, if we're concerned about spending this money on this scope, are there some things that we can do legwork for to narrow the scope and narrow the cost? It's value engineering is what we call it.
Right, and we have to have community input, because we can't have the community split again over another development, right? That's not good for anybody. So I think if we get their people's input, particularly people, that live over there, because I know that a lot of people that live over there are there, they used to live in another place. A lot of them are just transplants from Columbus, and they wanted to get away from the busy streets. So they wanted to get away from the fire department. So when Red Bud Trails came up, quite a few residents moved over to that area because it was, condensed, smaller home, and it was, quieter.
So, I suspect part of it, if you're having a conversation with the public, is to be able to look at and say, okay, I think this piece of land could support this many duplexes or this many fourplexes, and we estimate that it costs this much to build and would generate this much in income tax or property taxes. And is that something city staff can work on rough estimates of that, or is that part of like what this group would be doing for you?
I think some of those concept graphics is kind of the layout, and that leads us to development costs. I'm not going to be able to come up with development costs. That's this consultant or engineer is going to be able to come up with some of those costs on that. Certainly some of the stuff we could do, but it kind of packages up into kind of a process that ends up with the RFQ for qualifications. I think some of those market elements are things we don't have on staff.
So is this including, and it might just be terminology in the scope of services, so is this including is task 4 really the RFP, and are they developing the RFP?
Yes.
And the scoring criteria, and then put recommendations to staff on that?
Yes.
The other thing is up in task 2, which is really interesting and kind of could jeopardize the request for proposal process, at least my experience in it. I don't know the whole competitive bid and stuff like that, but in task 2, they're gonna meet with potentially interested parties in area realtors and developers. Then they're gonna create the concept graphic, and then they're gonna put out the RFP. So basically, they're going to do a study, meet with developers. Developers are gonna tell them potentially what they can do there. They're gonna document it for the developers, put it in the RFP, and the developer that was the loudest or most prevalent, theirs exact idea is gonna be the RFP. They bid on it, they get it. So I'm a little concerned about that and us also paying for, again, what the developer should be doing. The developer should be coming with ideas, not us getting ideas from developers, documenting it, and then having them bid on it. It just, I don't know. It just seems really weird to me.
I don't disagree that that is a potential outcome. We might view this, though, as, if the consultant sort of studies the market and then does a gut check with a few people locally who are interested in development, that sort of helps hone in the sort of like market that's broad and brings it a little more local. So like I said, I mean, that could be an outcome, right? That opens the door for, behind the scenes, backdoor dealing. That could happen. I'm not as concerned about that as I am concerned about getting a market study that doesn't look very locally and ending up with a product that is too broad to use. But I don't know. I think.
So Uriah, what do you think is important on this list? And/or is there anything that, in your professional opinion, is there something that we should add and remove?
I think it's all important. I think there are some things that could be sort of more easily done preliminarily than others. I think task 2, the reviewing the area development, economic and demographic trends, I think a consultant is in a better position to do that sort of more expertly than staff. Reviewing existing potential development in the vicinity of the site. So this is where, I like the dual source of information idea. Getting the public's input, getting neighborhood feedback, right? And then having the consultant sort of act on that or concentrate on it, right? It's the difference between saying, what do you want for dinner? And saying, chicken, fish, or beef, right? We're getting it honed in a little more by canvassing the neighborhood.
So the consultant is going to reach out to the public?
No, that's what staff was intending to do, right?
So
So that's like a separate parallel process here.
So they're gonna drive around the neighborhood and that's gonna be their vicinity?
Yeah.
So as far as letter C though, under task 2, up to 2 meetings with potentially interested parties and area realtors and developers. Now, would those be an open meeting, or is that something that would happen independently from the council and then they go to council in a closed meeting so that the community doesn't know what's going on? How
Yeah.
does that work?
That, to me, is the consultant meeting.
With area realtors?
Right, not in an open meeting.
Okay, so, but when they are going to present their findings, they're gonna present their findings to council, or will they present their findings to us first?
We can present them to the plan commission first, certainly.
So-
I find that interesting.
So, not to pull Robert's Rules of Order, but typically before discussion, a motion is on the table, and then depending on if somebody seconds it, then we have a discussion. So for that, I move to postpone the discussion and the decision on this scope of services for after community input and evaluation by staff has been done.
I'm sorry, I still have a question. Do we have anybody that's got an interest in that land? That's on the books? That's
That's
one,
not
We-
that's one to spend money and
we-
develop it?
We have proposals from last year
Mm-hmm.
from interested parties,
We do.
from last year.
So this has
Not
been,
re-
it's
not
been going
like
on
from
for a
last
year
month.
now.
It's from last year.
So are these the people that are looking to have us do this work? Did they request that we do this then?
No.
Okay, so you guys are trying to be
This is-
proactive
this
instead of
is
reactive?
staff-driven.
Yeah, okay.
So we have more than one party that wants that land for whatever reason.
Historically, yes. Not to be a pain in the ass, but, sorry, I didn't mean to say that word, but I made a motion. We need to determine if anybody's going to second it, and then we can have discussion about the motion.
Sure, there's a motion on the table to postpone, to postpone
The
deciding
decision.
on
Yep.
this until staff has had a chance to
Get
garner
community-
that
I have
community
a
information.
motion to postpone decision
All right.
until after community input has been,
Obtained and
Obtained
staff
by
has
staff.
evaluated.
So,
Yep.
so I'll entertain a second.
second it.
And if nobody seconds, that motion will die.
I'll second it.
We have a second. Now let's have discussion
On the motion.
on the motion. So I'll ask, is doing that going to send Vanderwall back to the drawing board on this proposal? I know you can't say for sure. What's your guess?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't, they would, it's really, if we requested a different proposal of services, they would do that. But it would come from, it would be initiated by us and what we're looking for.
And is staff in a position to begin that process of community canvas? For lack of a better term, is that?
We have a whole bunch of work to do before we actually start communicating with the public on that.
Okay. Was this intended to, or was this scope intended to begin fairly immediately?
I think it's on the agenda to kind of get the process moving.
So then, was the intent to do this consulting and then present it to the public? Was that what your essential?
They would
that's-
be in
That was what your
parallel.
goal was?
It would be in parallel, because the public input would be a part of this. This is a piece of an overall process.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that that's what I understood that what the intent was, personally. I mean, just, I guess I just didn't understand that was what the goal was.
What I heard you say, Mike, was
Turn on your thingy.
there's a lot of work before you can even go to the public.
Yeah, we have to put together all the site of it. We would have to do some of this, pull together some of the maps. Generally, people they provide better feedback when they're responding to something. So we would have to put together some maps. We would have to pull together that information from the proposals last year. If I'm going to be involved in what the community wants, I'm probably going to be doing some of what's in this proposal and using and trying to generate from what resources we have to create some visuals that people can respond to. So to me, for some of that information, we would end up doing some of this work.
Then how could you successfully parallel asking the community their opinion and the study at the same time if you need this study to take the visuals to the community?
And I guess one of the things we should have shown as part of this process is kind of like a timeline. This has tasks. They don't necessarily happen right in order, 1 through 5. To some extent they do, but I guess what we could have done and should have done on this is shown a timeline and an order of things that better communicated a process rather than a listing of tasks.
Like a little bit of a Gantt chart. Like if I were
Yes.
if I were visualizing it, it's almost like the site evaluation would be done first, and then the site evaluation can be passed off to you to help formulate the discussions with the community. At the same time, or maybe even a little after, that's when task 2 is happening. Task 3 happens after that, task 4 happens after that, and task 5 is sprinkled in the middle of all of those.
And I think that makes sense.
I-
Yeah, that makes a
yeah.
lot more, I mean, I'm sorry, like I said, I didn't understand
Right,
that
right.
that was what your intent was to me.
And we
Yeah.
should have had a more,
Yeah.
a Gantt chart was one way to do it, that better communicated an overall process.
Right, because I think that presentation to the community would be more organized and more transparent, it'd be more transparent. And it wouldn't be, and to include into that, if there's gonna be like closed meetings or if there's gonna be open meetings, I think the more notice you can give people to say, we're getting together to talk about this, the more notice you give to people, the more likely they're gonna be able to come, and that kind of thing, so.
Is the community input brainstorming, or which option do you like better? Because what I'm hearing is we don't want the community's input on their ideas, we just want them to choose options that we're giving them to pick from. So for me, if it was a brainstorming session with the community, which is what I'm asking for before we deal with this, there shouldn't be any prep work. We have this chunk of land, this is how much is developable. You sit kind of like we did with a strategic plan where you have a couple people taking notes, or you use sticky notes and document it on a whiteboard. No idea is off the wall. And get input from the community and then take it back to feed into channeling kind of where you want to go down a more defined path.
Certainly, a public input session can be done with a blank piece of paper. That certainly is one way. I don't think bringing ideas excludes brainstorming. I think it helps foster brainstorming and helps people think about things that, in addition to their own thoughts, I think it helps to generate other ideas. I think it creates a better synergy. It creates better brainstorming, to have something to look at, but I just don't think having something to look at excludes flat-out brainstorming. I think those are all complementary that go together.
But when we did this okay, so we kind of did something like this when we did Dingy Property. But that was after the proposals were received.
Right.
So why, I would just like to caution that when we did that, the community was very upset because it didn't matter what they said, we still already had our mind set in their eyes on what we were gonna do. So my concern is if we go in there with options, A, they're gonna think that one is already chosen and that's going to be the option. Or, B, we're not gonna entertain any other brainstorming. I don't know. My intention of the motion was to at least meet with the community first in a brainstorming session and not have to do a boatload of legwork, just get some ideas in an input session with the community before deciding the path to the RFP.
I think this process is completely different than 1400 Park Avenue, and comparing them is they're not the same. They're completely different. For the very point that you made, that public input was after the RFPs were collected, not before. I think that's a significant difference with this process. And again, there's a number of different ways you can do these things. They're different, they're not wrong. It's up to you how you guys want to
So
proceed with this.
how did the original request for this property get out there? So a
The original
developer-
request last year for
Yeah.
development, I have no idea.
So they just
I wasn't
came-
here.
It was an RFP that was put out general to anybody that wanted to bid on it, what they would use that land for.
Okay.
And
We've
The only
reached-
options that came back was residential of some sort. There was low-income housing, regular housing, that type of stuff. So it was a very general and vague RFP. And I'm not implying we want to do that again, because that was definitely not the right way to go. You need to have way better parameters than that. But with how we already know what needs to, the bucket of options for that land, I'm I don't know.
So Mike, you said staff is going to have a difficult time even having a public hearing, right?
No,
No, it's not?
we're not going to have a problem having a public hearing. No, we can have one anytime.
You said there's a lot of work.
There's a lot of work.
Right.
To
So
to do
this
this.
company is going to provide that work for you under this agreement,
Yes.
right? So is there a potential that we could go down this path and we get to a point where they have all of that stuff brought together, then we go out and reach for public hearing, whatever that is, here's the property, here are all the options for use, have all the graphics that you're looking for, right? And then we can have a better public input of the property, right? And then they can go back into doing whatever they were gonna finish out. Is that potentially an
That we
option?
could do it that way, yeah.
So can I add something? So if you want to use graphics, can we, I mean, obviously, we'd probably have to block out naming of the developers or whatever. But if you want to use graphics, can we use some of the proposals that were submitted to us to get for potential ideas?
I haven't looked at those proposals. I don't know what they look like. So I'm sorry, I can't comment on that.
I'll share a discussion I had at home with my wife. Okay? We had been talking about home improvements, maybe an addition, maybe changes inside the house, maybe both. And we found ourselves arguing about where such and such would go or how we would do this. And then we stopped and realized that we're not architects and we're not, we're not any of that. So we decided to focus on what we wanted, not how we were going to achieve it. So while I do think a map and some exhibit is important, if really canvassing the community is about, are you interested in multifamily housing, yes or no? Are you interested in single-family housing, yes or no? Are we interested in mixed use, right? Or does that actually become a business corridor? Do we think the road needs to be wider there? Do we think we want to limit access points or have a few access points? Things like that, okay? Then that's all the ingredients that go into the recipe, and we don't get hung up on, are there 4 lots here, 6 lots here, any of that sort of stuff. Leave that stuff to
100%.
the professional.
So we could get
You
that
are
accomplished.
exactly what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
The
So-
point of an RFP is the what you want, not the how you want it, and I feel like we're trying to define the how before the what.
Well, I do think the how is important for the consultant to do, but the what is definitely the community
So
part
to
of it.
answer your questions, we could do that with a survey, right? So could we create a survey, present it to residents? If they're interested, they fill it out. If they're not interested, then they don't, and that's definitely one step forward, closer to getting community input than not doing anything.
So I'm gonna be that person again, and the motion because our discussion keeps going away from the motion that's on the table. So the motion that's on the table is getting community input, and that can be decided surveys, however we want to do it, but the motion is to do that before we decide on this. So do we need to vote on that? And if everybody's not in agreement, it gets voted down and we go to a different motion. I'm just thinking that we're
I do need to read my Robert's rules a little closer.
sorry.
No, that's fine. So you're calling the question, we have a motion.
We have a
and
motion.
Second.
Let's vote on it, and if we don't like it,
Do we have
then
any more
we'll-
discussion on the motion?
On the
There,
motion,
that's
thank you.
Appropriate.
Can I discuss yet?
On the motion, yeah.
And I think what you just stated was exactly what your motion is.
Yes. 100%.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to lay this over until staff can develop a community canvassing task.
Some kind of a
Program.
survey, yeah.
All right. No more discussion?
Roll call.
Please.
Do you care for a roll call vote?
Yes, we do.
All right,
I asked for roll call, yeah.
all right. Mike, will you take the roll?
Okay, Finkler,
Aye.
Bright,
Aye.
Monday,
No.
Albright,
Aye.
Hojewski,
No.
Myers,
Aye.
4-2. Motion carries. Oh, shoot. Locked up. All right.
Okay. So Mike, will you keep us informed as far as
I will.
where staff is on developing that program of community input?
Sure will.
Awesome, thank you. All right, nothing's left on the agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Oh, go ahead, you can have it.
No, I
I'll
jumped
take
in
a
there.
second.
Motion
Squeeze
to
right in
adjourn.
there. We got a
to
motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.